we think about animals, we're an animal as well.
We're also a part of ecosystems.
Never discount all the little things that you can do.
We can have wild places and wild spaces and wild animals sharing our landscape.
Welcome to Ecosystems Live. In this set of 4 videos, you'll learn about how the environment and human actions impact animals, as well as how you can investigate what animals live near you. Today we have 4 experts here to help us discover nature that may be close to you. Aaron Grade with ICF, as well as Liz Burke, Tony Davis, and Susanna Lerman with the USDA Forest Service. We're so excited to share their expertise with you. And they're joined today with our host, also from the Forest Service, Farah Masumi.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. Wherever you live, you share that area with animals. You and all people are a part of the ecosystem.
An ecosystem is simply all of the living things and non-living things in a place and how they interact with each other.
Ecosystems can be huge. The Earth is one large ecosystem. They can also be as small as your backyard or even the size of your living room. Whatever its size, though, all ecosystems have biotic factors and abiotic factors.
Our abiotic things are our non-living things in our ecosystem, and that includes water and soil, rocks, and atmosphere as a whole. We have living things, which are biotic, and examples of living things in an ecosystem are plants, animals, and even tiny bacteria are considered living things.
Some ecosystems have a lot of living things, and some don't. The amount of different types of living things in an ecosystem is known as biological diversity, or biodiversity for short.
Most of the time, when we talk about biodiversity, we talk about the number of species that are there. So it's simply a count of all of the different living things in that ecosystem.
But it's not a count of the same living things in an ecosystem. There might be an ecosystem with lots of living things, but they may all be just from a couple different species. Even though the amount of living things is high, the biodiversity is not.
A place with high biodiversity is going to be a healthy landscape that is going to have a lot of resiliency or ability to maintain a healthy habitat, even if outside conditions change.
So biodiversity is a really great way to check the health of an ecosystem. But it also might determine what benefits an ecosystem may have to offer, which is known as its ecosystem services.
Ecosystem services are the benefits that nature provides to us, to people.
Such as things as air to breathe, clean water to drink, food to eat.
Things you might not think about an ecosystem providing, things like recreational opportunities, cultural opportunities.
And for some people, there's a spiritual or religious element to nature too.
So many ecosystem services, and they all interact. All of the biotic factors and abiotic factors in any ecosystem impact one another, and that includes us. As humans, we receive lots of ecosystem services, but we also have a huge effect on our ecosystems. But does that mean we can impact our own backyards? Aaron Grade began to think about that same question. He wondered, do resources inside of a residential yard and the resources in surrounding area affect the kinds of mammals that are present? So he followed the scientific method to see if he could get an answer. We'll follow his research in this episode, but if you want to learn more details about his process and discoveries, check out the Natural Inquirer publication, Lights, Camera, Tracks.
Our hypothesis was that the different activities that we do in our backyards would influence which mammals end up showing up there. In addition to those very local factors, there's also more large-scale factors, or what we call landscape factors. And those are what sorts of land uses are surrounding our yards.
The land use context, or how the land is used around a neighborhood, may be very different from one neighborhood to another. For example, one neighborhood may be close to an open farmland, while another neighborhood may be near a busy interstate and an airport.
So we were thinking about what was occurring both in the backyards, but also surrounding the backyards, and how that would influence what mammals would be there.
To test his hypothesis, Aaron teamed up with Susanna Lerman and Paige Warren to create an experiment. They studied 36 yards in and around the city of Springfield, Massachusetts. The scientists use motion sensing cameras called camera traps to take pictures of mammals when they appeared in the yards. The cameras took photos for 8 days, twice a year, in the late spring and then again in the late summer from 2016 through 2018.
And then we came back and collected them and downloaded the photos. And then we looked through all the photos for any mammals and collected any of the photos as data.
The camera traps took pictures of 14 different wild mammal species and 2 domestic species, cats and dogs.
What we found was a bit surprising. A lot of people think that you'll find the highest levels of biodiversity in the most natural areas, but in the case of mammals in Massachusetts, we actually found that the most number of species were in the suburbs.
But it's important to remember that abundance is different than biodiversity. Other areas may have more animals, but many of them belong to the same species. The suburbs have more of a variety of species, but they may have fewer overall animals.
And we think that this could be because the suburbs are a perfect place for the wildlife that likes the more natural areas and the wildlife that likes the more urban areas meet kind of in the middle.
That actually makes sense. The suburbs may not be ideal for most animals, but it's going to appeal to the widest range of preferences for a variety of wildlife. So while we won't see an abundance of any given species, we're likely to see more overall biodiversity. That doesn't mean that all areas aren't a priority, though. Yes, it's important for the suburbs to maintain their biodiversity, but it's just as important for other areas to raise their biodiversity. With this data analyzed, Aaron was left with drawing his conclusion. He noted that the land use surrounding residential yards seemed to have more of an effect on mammals than the resources homeowners provided inside their yards. With this knowledge, communities have the opportunity to make their surrounding areas more appealing to wildlife.
Humans can negatively impact ecosystems, but we can also positively impact ecosystems. We often will plant native trees in a forest nearby, or we'll make a conservation area or a preserve, and we'll just let nature grow.
Those are great solutions for areas surrounding you. But just because that's more important to mammals, Aaron also points out that small-scale actions in individual yards can still be really helpful for mammals.
I think what this experiment showed is that these resources and disturbances that we end up putting in our backyards, whether it's food, light, sound, or water, don't really influence which species end up in the backyard. But it might influence how happy those animals are with the resources that they have, and even how many animals in each species or what the population size is of that species. There's a lot of resources out there to make your backyards more wildlife friendly. And even if you live in a more urban environment, there's things you could do to see wildlife and to help wildlife.
Of course, you don't want to make your property inviting for all wildlife. For example, don't leave food outside because you may attract rats which carry diseases. Depending on where you live, you also don't want to leave your trash cans out too long because you might invite bears and raccoons to your home. Be sure to check with your state's fish, game, and wildlife agencies to see what they recommend for your area.
For example, you can set up a bird feeder or a little planter on your deck.
Never discount all the little things that you can do, whether you live in a rural, whether you're suburban or in urban areas. Every little thing you do does count and does make a difference in keeping healthy ecosystems.
And you know what keeps me healthy? Knowing more Ecosystems Live episodes are on their way.
In 1 week, we'll discover how you can impact what insects live near you. In 2 weeks, we'll learn how you can investigate the animals that live near you. And in 3 weeks, join us for a live question and answer program where our experts will answer your questions live. Leave a question in the comments section of this video and we'll try to answer it during the stream. If you think of questions later, you can also write it down in the comments section of the stream while we're live. All of our videos and streams will be available on the Natural Inquirer YouTube channel. While you're waiting for next week's video, try out our Nature Nearby Challenge. This activity is brought to us from our friends at the Natural Inquirer to help you observe the land use context surrounding you, as well as signs of nearby wildlife. With an adult, go to one end of a green space. This can be a park, a playground, a forest, a schoolyard, or even your own property. Note the land use context. What features are surrounding the area? Next, note any signs of wildlife: insects, tracks, nests, bird calls, etc. Now go to the other end of the green space and repeat. Note the land use context and any signs of wildlife. Finally, ask yourself, how do you think the land use around this area could be improved to create wildlife habitat? Ecosystems Live, Nature Nearby is a part of the FSNatureLIVE series. Check out all of our programs on our website. We have programs on caves, freshwater, grasslands, pollinators, and much more. The FSNatureLIVE series is brought to you by a partnership with the USDA Forest Service and the Natural Inquirer. The Natural Inquirer is a program that takes scientific research papers and rewrites them in easy-to-understand language for students at many different grade levels. All of their materials are free to order or download on their website. That includes the publication we mentioned earlier called Lights, Camera, Tracks, which goes into more detail about Aaron's camera trap experiment, as well as this week's Nature Nearby Challenge. And this is just one of their publications about discovering wildlife.
So after you finish this video, you might as well keep exploring these other amazing resources and then take some time to explore the nature nearby.